Hi there, I've downloaded a screen recorder to my phone. So here we are sitting in Havelock Marina, and if we head out in a northerly direction through that channel, the green is all mud at low tide, so there's just a relatively small channel and just enough water for Leo and Maya to anchor their boats where the bluebird is near waypoint 93 off to the right there. But if you carry on round Cullen Point, you have to stick quite closely to the channel to make sure you don't run aground. Lots of mud to catch you out. But if you go at high tide on an outgoing tide, you're pretty safe. So there's Havelock still out round Cullen Point and out in an easterly direction. That first bay there off to the south is very shallow and muddy. I haven't even been in there. But as we come up here, you can see another waypoint off that point. I don't think it has a number. Why doesn't it have a number? Anyway, there's a series of club moorings all around the Sounds. I think 80 altogether. So there's a club point. A club mooring just in there where it says 3.7 meters. That's the depth. So we often use that if the wind's northerly and we're just waiting for the tide to be able to go into Havelock. That peninsula, there's no houses on it, it's all bush, but there are houses a bit further along the peninsula. So if you carry on in a northerly direction and go up round the point, opposite the point at Rimu Bay or Watanihi, there's quite a collection of holiday homes there, and a few permanents, I think. Anyway, if you go, so I'll just zoom out so you can see where we are. So if you just head on past that point that I just zoomed in on, you can see there's quite a long northerly reach heading north there. That can get reasonably rough, especially if wind is against tide. So if the tide's going out but the wind is northerly, which it more often is, it can get a wee bit rough there, but just enough to be a pain in the neck if you haven't got a very good engine, which is the situation we've been in a few times. But if you go around that point back there, Putanui Point, if you go round that point and hang a right, you might be able to see there's the sign of fish farms. There's no actual fish farms there, but there's all around this part of the Sounds there are a lot of mussel farms. So you just see them, they're just rows and rows of big black buoys in a kind of square or rectangle shape. So they're easy enough to avoid and they're lit up for at night. But you can see they're all along that side in there as well. We know the people who have the farm on that next point there. So we've stopped in at their house, which is that waypoint to there by the airstrip, many times. Very lovely people there. But if I just zoom out so you can see where we're going. So further in the Kenepuru Sound, there's a lovely wee spot just in there. And we spent a good 6 months just anchored off there. There's a Department of Conservation, we just call it a dock campground on shore and a toilet. And the wind is mostly north or northwest, and that point just deflects the wind nicely, and it swirls in a bit if it's really windy, but the only time we had to move was if it was coming in from the southwest, which it hardly ever did. And from that little bay, just around the corner in Long Bay, there's a couple of club moorings, so that's where we would go if we needed to. And further in the Sounds, this Sound has a road running along both sides of it, and there is the last remaining school in the inner Sounds in about there at Waitaria Bay. Quite a few people live in there at Waitaria Bay. But if you go back out of Kenepuru Sound and you head north instead, there's some really beautiful spots. There are houses here and there. If you go up and around that point, and into Chance Bay. There's absolutely no houses in that bay, and it's a really good anchorage spot there, and a really nice walk up the river there. But in the other little bays like Penguin Bay, there'll be 3 or 4 batches, we call them, holiday homes, and the odd permanent people living aboard. So if we carry on up roughly north, but kind of northeast, there's a bay called Northwest Bay, and we've got kids have got a couple of friends, and Sue and Frank are their parents, and I think their house is about there. They live permanently there and just work looking after other people's places, like cutting the grass or small maintenance on properties. So that's in there at Northwest Bay. And now we're getting out a bit further. There's a big long skinny point there called Tawero Point. I'm just zooming out so you can see where we are. If you go around Tawera Point, there's a pretty cool island called Maud Island, but it's a pest-free island, so you can't just stop and go ashore there. We spend a fair bit of time in at Waiona Bay in there, but it's got quite a steep hill and the wind does gust quite badly in there. But there's another dock campsite in there with a toilet. So actually sometimes we meet groups of kayakers. There's some, not anymore, but there was an organisation that brings groups of Americans out, and they do a combination of tramping, kayaking, not sure what else, and somehow they can credit it towards part of their degrees. So we often met, like 20 odd young people with double sea kayaks mostly, I think, so probably 10 kayaks, and they'd pull in somewhere like there and camp for the night before carrying on. They'd be doing maybe 3-week trips without re-provisioning, so they're on real rations. But if you look out from Maud Island in a northeasterly direction, that is then out to the open sea. So I imagine that's a bit like where you kayak, in that if there is swell coming in, then it will reach in a fair way. And same if the wind is northeast, then it does build up along there. The only thing being that if you zoom out again, you can see that the North Island's off there. So it's not like where you are, where there's kind of endless sea as far as you can go north by the looks of it. Anyway, I'll stop there because this video is probably long enough. But into the southwest of Maud Island, there's a really beautiful area called World's End down there. But I'll stop this now, and then I'll do a separate one to show you where we were at D'Urville Island. Bye.